I'm Dr. Sara from the Sociology Department. In the absence of Dr. Ruxana, I'll be helping to facilitate today. We have a wonderful session coming up with about 3 to 5 minutes of speakers. Dr. Mohammed Waqar, Dr. Shabnam, Dr. Mohammed Imran, and myself will be speaking. And then we're very lucky to have faculty volunteers, 6 of them also, who are going to be speaking: Dr. Aftab, Dr. Hafiz, Dr. Abdul Jalil, Dr. Adnan, Mr. Romel, and Ms. Saba Iqbal. After that, we'll also open the floor for others to join in and speak. Open book exams, it's the designated assessment for the semester. Some of us are using multiple, and that's where I'll end with using this as a mixed assessment approach as well. So I've been designated to talk about OBE generally and discuss some of its strengths and limitations and how to counter the challenges, and also share some of the best practices in the social sciences. I originally had 5 minutes, but because one of our speakers, Dr. Sheikh, is not going to be joining us today, I'll take a little bit of his time as well so that we're on target and we finish on schedule. So a little bit of the background is that when the pandemic started, UNESCO released a report in 2020 estimating that about 34 million learners at tertiary level are negatively affected because of social distancing, closures, online and blended modes of teaching, etc. And a research after that in the USA estimated that USA would lose up to 1.5% in GDP due to this decline in learning. So we can anticipate that it would be maybe much larger for developing countries. So one of the recommendations by scholars, even prior to the pandemic, has been open book evaluations and assessments. And this tends to have the benefits of this, applying and finding information and knowledge in students. So it tends to enhance their learning. It also motivates them to answer more analytically and critically. And in this way, open book assessments and examinations are associated with higher order thinking skills. Now, having said this, the emphasis also is on how the questions are designed and how the answers are readily extracted from material or learning material that the students can take during the use during the examination. So we're going to talk a little bit about this in upcoming slides, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden things are much easier for students and teachers, but rather it needs a little careful evaluation of whether we are designing the right questions for open book assessments and whether students actually have the skills and the knowledge and awareness of how to answer open book questions better. It's not just that it's much easier for them. So what is the material that we can use? We're usually with open book assessments, even in the past, prior to the pandemic and prior to online teaching, textbooks could be used, online resources and online blogs could be used, personalized notes that students have made themselves during the course, during the period of the course, instructor PowerPoint presentations and a summarized course pack, formula sheets. So we know that open book assessments have for many years been used for statistics and chemistry, where you provide the students with formula sheets. Now, what are the strengths? So we know, Anish, could we mute this person, please? And I'm going to try to mute them. Okay. We know that open book and assessments, they can enhance the learning environment. They can encourage students to start understanding and responding to questions in a better way. They start abandoning rote learning, which is very common in developing countries and in Pakistan. And rather, it encourages students to be more critical and be more creative. It also empirical research suggests that open book assessments tend to reduce the anxiety and stress in students, because when they're coming into the exam with their learning material, they tend to have less fear and stress. So another big theme of advantage or strength for open book examinations is the anytime, anywhere approach. And that's why this has been a popular alternative for online assessments and the blended mode of teaching, where students can download question papers and answer their questions from any part of the country, and they can also be given a time bracket for it. It's also known to be more supportive for disadvantaged students. Now, other examples of this, apart from downloading and and having weak access to internet, so being able to submit the answers later on. Students with language barriers tend to perform better with open book examinations because they have their learning material with them, and this is an advantage for Pakistan, and especially for FC, because we have students from all kinds of backgrounds that might not have been as advantaged. English is our official working language and study language, but they might have a primary and secondary background which doesn't give them that language benefit. So they tend to perform better with OBS. I'm abbreviating open book examination as OBS. I shouldn't do that. So what are the limitations? Instead of just describing the limitations, I've also summarized this slide with how to counter the challenges. So a study by, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Zagari, Orley, and Durning, I hope I'm doing that right, suggests that open book examinations only allow students to perform better and learn better when both the teachers and the students have been trained and prepared for open book examinations. So some of the changes that we would need is that we need teacher training support to design questions for open book examinations. Now, this could be done through a teamwork approach where faculties or departments work together. I don't know how much is the ideal time, but maybe a couple of hours before the semester starts, and maybe the first month after the semester starts, they need to get together, share the questions, and then there needs to be a redesigning of the curriculum and course outline, because the course outline is almost a contract between the teacher and the student. So the students need to be aware beforehand that they also need to build up and prepare for open book examinations at the end of the semester. At the student level, same issue. We need to develop the skills in students to be able to answer open book examination questions and be able to synthesize and analyze and critically analyze their information better. So the question would then be, who would provide this training? Would it be the institute? Would it be the department? Would teachers be specifically designated to do this themselves in each course respectively? Would we hire a third party to come in and give a training every year? Or based on need. And then also with online open book examinations, there is an issue of academic dishonesty and cheating. So two means of minimizing this teaching, one that we are using in Moodle is that imposing a time limit for quizzes and essay answers. And another one that I found was, and I haven't used this personally myself, is using a lockdown web browser with a monitor. So theoretically, what this is that students are basically, when they enter the portal to give the online book examination, their web browser is monitored and locked down, so they can't change screens and they can't copy paste from anywhere. So at university level, what would we need again? Though open book examinations are known to be cost effective and they support student learning, but definitely you need additional investments in terms of digital infrastructure. Maybe the bandwidth needs to be increased. We already have a portal, a Moodle that we're using, but a lot of institutes may not have it. There would also be need for the universities and departments to revamp the curriculum. And then also you would need to incentivize teachers and see whether they are ready for the skill development and this flexibility in using these new teaching and assessment practices. Another study, a couple of studies showed that the ideal situation is actually, especially during transition mode, to use open book examination and closed book examinations together. And some of the proof of this was that they did a comparative and control study, and they found that maximum marks in both open and closed book examinations are the same, but the minimum marks in open book examinations are higher. Yes. Okay. Does somebody say Sarah? So I'll move forward. These are my last two slides. These are specific examples from the social sciences. I don't think I'm qualified to talk on behalf of everybody in the social sciences, but I'm just sharing my personal examples, what I've used as an open exam for previous classes. So when the lockdown first happened with 450, I used this open book exam. So comparatively, you'll see with the closed book exam, you can use a theoretical based question based on definitions, where you're depending on the student to answer based on memory recall. So the question could be, compare the three broad sociological theories of health. Now in comparison, when I start redesigning an open book question, I can actually be more specific. I can, from the 15 theorists that I've covered, I can ask them specifically to talk about Parsons versus Graham versus Navarro, and then explain the differences in their explanations for health inequity. And you can, you'll notice, or if you haven't, Parsons is a structural functionist, Graham is a symbolic interactionist, and Navarro is a neo-Marxist. So whereas in the first question, again, I'm depending on memory recall. I'm not exactly sure whether they remember all the the philosophical backgrounds, or how many of the 15 theorists they'll choose to quote, or if any at all. In the open book exam question, I can specifically ask them about the theorists and see their critical analysis and comparison of the philosophers. Now, this is a question that we can design for social statistics. Here again, with the closed book examination, I'm depending on the student's memory recall, and I'm asking them to pick any two parametric tests and describe the assumptions that and their reasoning for using them for a quantitative data analysis. Whereas in an open book exam, what I can do is that I can give them a research question and a hypothesis. I can allow them to use their notes. I can give them a time limit, let's say 6 hours, and tell them to open their SPSS, and then use a list of the parametric tests that I've given them, and the parametric, they all have them anyway, a list of the tests and the assumptions. And then I can ask them to generate regression results and output results to prove or disprove the hypothesis that I've listed. So this is really higher order thinking, where they're actually doing the data analysis and using the tests, framing the research question, operationalizing and sharing that information. Ideally, this is an amazing question for me to give. I would prefer it, and definitely it ties in with the higher order thinking and skill development for students. But having said this, I'll close with this. We have to be very careful that students may think that open book examinations are easy, and we also can design very complex higher order questions in open book assessments. But we have to be careful and think from the regional context, whether our students are ready for this and whether they would actually be able to perform well. And in many cases, when we're reading the scholarship, you'll see that teachers, when they're transitioning, they tend to have very similar open book questions compared to the closed book questions, because they're trying to help the students adapt. And so they don't necessarily include that many higher order questions, but more definition based questions, which are just a case of opening the notes and copying down the answer. And that might be important in the transition phase preliminary stage, when students are getting used to open book examinations and abandoning the rote learning concepts. So these are my references. I will be sending this presentation to Anish, who will share this with you in case any of you want to read any of these references. So I'll close for now, and I'm going to now sharing screen. Yeah, I'm going to introduce the next speaker. That's Dr. Waqar Azeem. Dr. Waqar is currently working as an assistant professor in the Department of English at FCCU. To his credit, he's received a Fulbright scholarship for his PhD in English literature from State University of New York, USA, and he's going to be talking about best practices in the humanities department. So over to you, Dr. Waqar. And your co-host, so you can share the screen, please.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Sara. I think the introduction of the overall session was really great. It kind of set the tone and also introduced us to some of the theoretical background to OBE. That was really helpful. And also thank you for introducing me to. Okay, so I'll be just sharing the screen over here. Right, so I'm using a specific example of an OBE assessment that I used for a midterm exam, in fact, this semester. And it is second time I'm using it, and I think it has been really successful. So here is the course, Introduction to English Literature. And these are my outcomes that I have listed in the syllabus outline. I'm focusing on this particular outcome highlighted in red. So learners will be able to, or they will become familiar with the history, major movements, and genres of literature in English. As you can see, this is a basic level learning outcome. And it has to be there because it is an introductory course. As you can see, there are advanced outcomes as well, but for them, I have a different assessment. Now, paying attention to this particular outcome, which is I'm expecting that the students will become familiar with the history, major movements, and eons of the literatures in English. This is the midterm exam, the description of the exam that I have given to them. Basically, what they are doing is they are creating a web page, kind of blog, using Google Sites. Now, these are all the instructions. So I'm asking them to go to this link. So I have created the website itself, and then I'll show you in a minute. I have given them instructions how to create their own page on the website. So they will click page on the right side, create a sub page, clicking three dots. These are just, very specific instructions because they are at 200 level, and some of them really didn't have any idea about. And I was hoping that I was expecting that they might not have any idea of how to create a page. So all the instructions are over here. And then if you look at number 3, I'm asking them to write a 600-word write-up for history of English and American literature. In 600 words, they should describe at least 2 major ages in the history of English and American literature. And they are supposed to make sure that they use their own expression. Also, they are supposed to use at least 3 images for each age, and they are supposed to cite all the resources. So again, this is part of the question. So basically, I'm telling them you will be creating your own web page of Introduction to English Literature. This learning will help you to create and maintain your own blog at a later stage if you wish to become a blogger or a writer. Now, the alternative, with kind of closed book exam, will be, or maybe like this, where I ask them to write in 300 words or 600 words description of a particular age. Books will be closed. In that scenario, I'm assuming they would be recalling the memorized information and reproducing it, what you just call a demonstration of rote learning. Now, in contrast with that, over here, I'm asking them to do this midterm exam over a number of days. So I assigned them on December 6th, and I actually gave them about 4 weeks to finish it. Now, this 4 weeks time, in fact, is a time for them to transit to this kind of exam. I have assigned them the readings. They know the readings. They know where to find the answer of this question. The readings that I have assigned to them are reasonably complex at their stage. I'm asking them to cite the sources. I'm asking them to look for 3 images and use them in their response. Now, what they will do is they will read the material that I have assigned to them, because they know that their answer should be a rephrase of those assigned readings. Additionally, they will look for 3 images from anywhere, from any resource, in order to describe each of the age. While they do that, they will be surfing on web the information related to that particular age. Apparently, what should have been a kind of cheating, the same process which should have been cheating, in fact, is reinforcing their learning. That is exactly what I want them to do. I want them to read that material that I have assigned to them, which they might have skipped otherwise for a closed book exam. I have given them a month to read those readings. And then they might not have looked up for any information on that particular age going online. But now they're looking for the images. So they will be looking at the Romantic age and Classical age and Victorian age, and they will be familiarizing themselves with the names of these major ages in the history of English and American literature. Eventually, I'm asking them to cite, okay, it's fine, you read the material. and you rephrased in your own words, but cite it, all the resources that you used. So I'm giving them the practice of always citing whatever resource they used. So again, developing another skill. Now, lastly, when I give them this self-image of being a blogger or a writer, that motivates them to perform in this exam as well as they can, because eventually they are going to publish this web page. They know they are going to be recognized as writers at whatever stage. And then I tell them that if you wish, you can continue to maintain this web page in future, and you can add more posts to it after this course as well. If you plan to major in English, probably each one of you should have a blog. Now, in addition to the assessment of their knowledge, the students will be learning these skills, which I think are as important as the content of the course. I'm training them to be, through this kind of open book exam, to be honest, to be independent in the learning process, to be more confident in facing the audience, the readership, to be more responsible in taking care of their learning process, to be accountable, this kind of self-accountability. They are responsible for the material they are putting on the web page. And of course, to excel in their field, they would try to, perform as good as they can. And finally, I'm training them to be lifelong learners, because they're learning at their own pace. So these are the outcomes which I think are also assessed in addition to the primary outcome that I shared with you on the first slide. So this is an illustration of an open book exam that I do for this particular class. Thank you for your patient listening. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Waqar. We can't take
Sara?
questions now. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Sara, there is just one more thing. My illustration is over. But I just want to show the exam, the way students are doing it. Can I have a minute more?
Okay, our session is finished. The volunteer speakers should be speaking now, but please go ahead.
Okay, all right. So students, this is a web page created by one student. You can see it.
We can't see it.
Sorry, I'm sorry. No, yeah, it should work now.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Right. So please have a look at the students' names. So each name indicates a web page by a student. Right. So this is the whole class. This is one web page that I have opened. The student herself has designed it. This timeline has been created by the student herself. These images have been uploaded by her, by the student, along with the citation. These are all the references. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waqar. Next, Dr. Shabnam Malik is going to be presenting. She's going to be sharing the best practices, numerical and quantitative. She's chairperson and an associate professor of the Department of Mathematics. And among her many accomplishments is that she's been awarded the International Research Support Initiative Program Scholarship from HEC Pakistan. Thank you, Dr. Shabnam. Can you share screen, your co-host, please? We can't see your screen.
Okay, I'm just sharing it.
Okay.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Sara. Okay, I will talk about the best practices in an open book exam. As Dr. Sara already explained, that undoubtedly we have to bring certain changes to our old teaching practice to get along well with the task of online assessment, which is an open book exam. And these changes are made to maintain transparency and also to enhance students' learning. In an online exam, as we all know that the nature and type of questions need to be changed. It should involve higher order thinking so that student cannot just find the answer from available digital sources. Rather, they need to have a good understanding of the topic in order to answer the question. Therefore, we need to modify and innovate questions accordingly. There might be different kind of open book exam depending upon the nature of the subject. For example, in some of the computer science courses or statistics courses, they use this scenario or situation-based questions or customized applied problems or conceptual reasoning questions or in the form of project or video presentation or a numerical question like in mathematics, where we have to make multiple versions of each questions, and of course, and Viva also. And of course, in all of these methods, we have to take a lot of time as compared to the time spent in preparation of the exam for on campus. So here mainly I will talk about the exam, open book exam in numerical and quantitative disciplines. In numerical and quantitative disciplines, Moodle is one of the best platforms to assess students in an online system because it provides us a variety of ways to conduct exam along with the features of shuffling the questions, making random questions, and making question banks, fixing quiz time, opting for the option of a sequential navigation that helps to minimize the chances of cheating. So one type of exam on Moodle is for numerical question are MCQs. These MCQs are good to cover the maximum contents for the assessment. But sometime in numerical subjects are wrong answer due to a minor change of a sign earns them a 0 score despite that the fact that their method was correct. And sometimes students select the correct option without actually knowing how to get it. So by getting their rough work right after this exam or quiz by email, this will help out this matter. And then short answer question where it requires small calculation to get the answer, then true and false, and then essay type question. Essay type question is in fact one of the best method because due to the nature of some questions, students are expected to solve the complete question by explaining each and every step. For example, if it's a mathematics exam, the student has to need to solve the complete question. But since in mathematical question, they need to use the mathematical jargons, and we as instructor, we use the Korean editor inside the Moodle to type every kind of complicated mathematical symbols. Like this is an example of Moodle quiz, which we create in using the Korean editor inside the Moodle. But since the students are not familiar, are not very comfortable, so they cannot just directly type in the provided space. Rather, they need to solve this question on a piece of paper, and then they upload its image on the Moodle. So
you want to put yourself on PowerPoint mode because we can't see that clearly.
Can you see it now?
No, we can see the slides, but it's not in PowerPoint mode. If you can, okay, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, we can see it now. Okay. Yeah, it's on PowerPoint mode now. Thank you.
So these are the examples of the mathematical symbols which we made in our Moodle, but using this Korean editor. But since the students are not familiar and not comfortable in and they're not familiar to use this Korean editor inside the Moodle, so they can solve their question on a piece of paper, and then can they upload their image on there. So and then so in order to maintain transparency in Moodle exam, especially in the numerical subject, it's important to make multiple versions of each question, at least 4 to 5 versions. And then the time limitation is also very important in numerical question if the exam is on Moodle, because I believe that less time is given to student, the less chances they will have to collaborate and cheat. By time limitation, I do not mean that the exam is a closed exam, is an open exam, and student can still use their notes, their lecture notes, their books or other resources. But the questions are like that, they cannot directly find the answer on their notes, or so they need to use that idea in order to solve that question. So, but by giving them less time, they will not be able to collaborate with the other students, and they get the help from each other, not even necessary from the same class. So, but of course, there might be some bound on connectivity or power issue on part of some students that can be dealt on individual basis. But in my experience, these cases are very few and can be easily managed through Viva or exam at a later point. And then lastly, the Viva or oral exam is one of the best practices to maintain transparency in an online exam. Usually we take even Viva of the MCQs and essay type questions, and also the rough work of their MCQs and the short answer questions. And for the final, we usually, for example, set apart 10 marks out of 40 for the Viva. If the exam is of 40 marks, so we have 10 marks for the Viva and the 30 marks for the other MCQs and essay type question and all of these steps. And of course, the rough work of their MCQs and short answer question is also very important to have it after their exam. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shabnam. We'll have some time to summarize Dr. Waqar and Dr. Shabnam's examples. Thank you so much for both of them. We'll be hearing from Dr. Mohammad Imran next. He's currently an assistant professor in the School of Life Sciences, and he's earned his PhD in biomolecular sciences. He has over 10 years experience teaching and in research across various institutions in UK and Pakistan. And I'll request all of you to please mute yourselves, please. Anish, I think you're also automatically muting everyone.
Yes, I am.
Dr. Imran, are you here?
Yes, I'm.
Yes, you are. If you can share screen and start, please. It's nearly 1:35.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, you have 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then we can start. Our speakers can start. Thank you.
I try to be as quick as possible. So my task is talk about virtual lab exams. So during the pandemic, we were forced to.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Mohammed, because we can't see your screen.
Okay. Are you able to see it now?
Yes.
So during the pandemic, we were forced to think alternatives really about the practical, because theory exam and assessment could be done, but practical experience was lacking in some of the practical courses. So then there are already existing some of the universities and other sources were available. So we explored them and we used some of the resources for that. There are two types of virtual labs are available online, which I thought there may be further as well. There are simulated videos which shows you virtually the demonstration of the practical. So you are watching it and you are listening the audio as well, and you are learning about it. But it lacks sense of doing it by self. Then there is another category of interactive animated videos sessions, which gives you virtual feeling of doing by yourself. You have to pick a paper, you have to put the tip on, and then you have to take the protocol instructions and written instructions are all along as it is given in the normal lab. The protocol is given to the student to do the activity. For lower level course, Bio 100. So we could not do the microscopy. We have to teach them how to use a microscope. What are different parts of the microscope? So under the lockdown, I use virtual light microscopy route, and the link is given here. I just come back after finishing this discussion to show you the example how it does it. In another practical of determining the ABO blood group when they are present in the campus, we used to do it. Every student do it by himself or herself. But during the lockdown, I tried to find out, how it can be done still in an interactive way, that you have to take a sample of blood, then you have to take the buffer, last slide, you have to take the tips and etc. So I try to show, and just one of them because time is short. Then for other courses, there are all courses you can find labs. I also show those links as well. There are a number of situations we can face. For example, even in the regular semester when the campus is on, we don't have the facility of scanning electron microscope or transmission electron microscope. Even in the West, where these microscopes are available, all the students cannot be accommodated to, touch and do the experiment. Only those students who are entering into that field, they are allowed to do it. But learning should be there so that they can use it practically for their research purposes. So they can show the microscope there, but we cannot show the real microscope here because we don't have it. But the experience can be done by MyScope training, transmission electron microscopy, and scanning electron microscopy. Other situation could be that the consumable that we use for doing the practical at undergraduate level, at a higher level course, or could be very expensive. So, and the time required for accomplishing one task is quite time consuming. So it cannot be finished in 2 hours time. So in such a situation, for example, ELISA assay of 3 patients in which you try to determine some, antigen present or antibody present, you can do it in just 1 hour. You can simulate the process whole of it. Even entering into the lab, you can click and then person is entering and they keep taking the blood. For other courses, for all of us, biology, chemistry, and physics, there are a number of resources. I'm sure the list might be more exhaustive than this. So I have listed few of the sources which include biology, chemistry, physics, pharmacy, and sub-subject microbiology, etc., physiology. So those practicals are there, and I try to show. This is all from my side, and I try to show you these websites as well, what the content looks like. Okay. So, for example, virtual lab simulation. Can you see this? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you see this, go to this website. The link is given. So you will find 254 simulations which are related to chemistry, physiology, chemistry, biology, genetics, biosafety. So there are a number of resources available there. On another website, there may be common sources as well. So lab exchange, biotechnology, molecular biology, there are a number of other resources available on another website as well. And how do we do the practical? For a simple practical, just like blood group determination, I can just demonstrate that these are the four patients available for the student to determine their blood group. The principal is already told how to do, instructions are given. I'm not taking time to do that, just to show you simulation. If we want to see the Miss Brown's blood group, so what happened in blood group? The sample is taken. So we have to actually add 1 or 2 drops into 1 and 2 into B, which is A group or B group, and into RH, it is positive or negative. Then you add the antibody into A, into B. These are the antibody against the antigen present, and RH, anti-RH antibody. So the instructions are given on the right side. The reaction would happen, and you have to tell which things are present. So it is showing that A is not present, B is not present, and RH antigen, which was added last, is not present. So no student has to analyze this data, that what is the blood group of this person. So finish, and then you have to pick up that because A is negative, B is negative, RH is negative, so it is O negative. So then it tells you, congratulations, your answer is right. You can do it for a number of patients, and similarly you can think of your blood group and you can see what would happen in the slide. Along with this practical, because this does not really clearly show the agglutination reaction which actually happens when blood groups are determined. So I have given them a video as well so that they can see how the agglutination looks like. But in this interactive session, they are able to, the data is automatically populated. For a higher order, course, for example, a very interesting, it is again related to microscopy. There are a number of other practical. For example, arthropod, if you want to see moths proboscis. So this is scanning electron microscopy practical for Bio 301, which I used to do before even, because this instrument is not available. So what I have done, I have added the sample into it. So I clicked it, sample is inserted inside. Then I have to evacuate the machine. I have to evacuate air from it so the vacuum can be created. So then I have to select different voltages. For example, 20 kilowatts I have selected. Then spot size, how much area I want to throw the electrons onto it, and z-axis 10. And I turn the turn the voltage on, high voltage on. So high voltage is generated by a filament, and these are the solenoid magnets which try to focus the beam of electron onto it. So you can see the beam of electron is not simulated present, and you can see the image of the proboscis. Proboscis is the mouth part of a mosquito, or some of the bugs. So this is the detail emerging at this, and then I can adjust the brightness, I can adjust the contrast. Okay, I can adjust the, for example, if it could have been here, so students have to actually manipulate the adjustment focus knob so that they are learning where the fine focus is. And then they can magnify, they want to see the detail, so they can increase the magnification. So this area is focused. Now a little bit more things are apparent. It is also telling you, what sort of surface changes are happening. So these are the, small engines which are, sucking the material from the, plants, or in case of mosquito, from our, blood. So this is incredible detail. Then you can even adjust the focus here as well. You can find further details, and it has the provision to image it. Each student can have a unique area. Earlier, this website or software used to have ability to explore. The exploration becomes too heavy for handling electron microscopy data. So in this particular one, it is only one area that the student can image it. But if we can find out other resources, or in which each student can have to explore different area and show it, so that they are not doing cheating or copy pasting of materials. I can show you other examples as well. For example, immunology, Western blot assay. So this is a long experiment, and this takes 40 minutes, for example, 30 minutes on do it here. So here I am showing that that the person has to enter into the building, and this is the question shown that doctor, he want to test it. Then it instructs that in the laboratory you need to have safety gear on, and safety gear shown in the form of gloves. The person has worn the glove. Now, first of all, when you collect the blood, then you have to centrifuge. You have to interact, open the centrifuge. Then there are blood samples. You are trying to interested in A sample. You are inserting it there. B, C. You are clicking it, and the samples are going. The balance is there, and then it will ask you to what do you do? Close the lid and turn the centrifuge on. The centrifuge is turned on. Plasma and the blood cell will be separated, and then you will be using it for doing your assay. Because this is a long practical, I'm just showing that students have to do the volume, taking the volume. So they have to give instruction is going to take 1 ml. They have to adjust the pipette. Although the real feeling of adjusting the pipette, which is in the real laboratory, is missing. Their pipetting skill, because there are multiple presses here. So their pipetting efficiency is still missing. But student can still know the steps and how they do it. And then it is added into one tube, and it will give you an instruction to add it to. Basically, it is preparing the dilution. Waste is discarded, and then it is saying you need to take another ml and take the serum and put it into another tube. So basically, it is preparing dilution 1 to 1 dilution, 1 to 10 dilution, and 1 to 100 dilution, which is given here on the right side. Small volume, you take 0.1 microliter to make the 100 time dilution. Then it will instruct you to add the diluent, which is the buffer. In this case, you use the bigger pipette, take 1 ml and make it 1 to 1, which is 10.
Dr. Imran?
Yes, I can.
If you can wrap up that the student assessment then would be that they would say, they would in this 1 hour, they would be recording their results and their processes and the stages, and then they would save that and you would mark it, if I'm not wrong. So this is just excellent that you showed us through the simulation models. But if you can just wrap up and conclude, we have only 14 minutes and we have 6 more people to speak.
Yeah, how the data is calculated. The students give their their data, and the class data is shared. Then they populate what percentage of class is O positive, O negative, and then, you know, they do it, you know, they do the exercise, they learn the concept, then the Viva takes place to understand what is their understanding. So normal lab practical happens this way. So then they know what steps are followed. Okay. So this way we do it. In microscopy, they have a unique image. Each person has a unique image. For example, they are watching a cell wall, they are labeling it. You know, in a microscopy slide, there are a number of objects available. So each student is exploring different area and giving the images, that is taken image, and then they can be stored. Even in here, you can take the image, you can record the image, it will say save the image, menu diagram, you can save it. Okay, that's how they write it in their practical notebook and we assess it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. We now have 6 volunteers speaking. I don't want to impose a order, but in the list that's been sent to me, I'm just going to go according to that, if it's all right, and I hope you all approve. So if I could request Dr. Aftab Bashir to speak first, please. Sir, you would have 1 minute, please.
Okay, so I started actually doing this oral exams since the onset of COVID, especially in the lockdown period. So after a bit thoughtful decisions, I divided the course into 6 parts. It means that I took 6 vivas of the students with 10 marks each. And I identified that there are 2 big advantages of doing that. The first advantage is that if you divide your coursework into 6 different parts, it's much more easier for the students to grasp, and the coverage of the course is much better than you take the 4 conventional exams where they have 2 quizzes and 2 midterm and final exams. So I found they were much better in their understanding and confidence in the subject. The second thing was the oral exams. They gave a lot of confidence to students. Initially, they were shy, they were reluctant, but after about 2 of the Viva exams, I found that they just boosted their confidence and they could interact much better with their instructor as compared to silent kind of exams, just writing the papers or doing some other stuff to complete the coursework. The only point of cautions that I identified during this exams of oral Viva specifically, that one thing was that students were required to turn their video on while they were on the oral exams. And the second thing was that WhatsApp class group is very common for every course, and students, they interact with each other on WhatsApp. So when you start asking the questions, they share the questions on WhatsApp, okay? And to prevent that, we have to build up a question bank, or the same question can be actually asked in different types of words, okay? So that was the only thing that I have to do a lot, so that every student should face different questions, okay? And you are looking onto their face, that if they are not looking into some other source like a monitor where they can shift the slides quickly and answer your question. And these 2 things were very important, in fact, in these oral exams. That's my experience of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aftab. That's true. And I think Dr. Waqar gave an example for that, that if you give them an oral Viva based on their research questions or a project that you've assigned, an independent project, then that's another way of evading the problem of having to make multiple questions. The next one, a volunteer faculty who's speaking today would be Dr. Hafiz Rizwan Ahmad. Sir, are you here, please?
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. So I will share some of my practices. So first of all, I thought that I need to give them enough practices so students keep on practicing through discussion forums and Google surveys. Most of the evaluation done through that. So if a student is writing within a specified time on number of topics, his writing and communication skills will improve. Moreover, work of everyone can be read by others. Cheating means embarrassment. Uh, Additionally, different questions appear before different students in during midterm and final term, and they were not allowed to skip the questions because they were time bound. Once a question is skipped, so it will not appear again. But most of the important thing which I have learned in my life is that when we make people comfortable, they perform better. So it was my duty to develop an encouraging and participating environment to make them feel that they are not being judged. Rather, they are sharing their ideas and thoughts. We also need to make them realize that they are not competing with each other and grades are not a guarantee for overall success in real life. So being a normal person is the best trait we can have. So relax and enjoy your education and learning. So in my view, learning is the main objective, evaluation is the secondary, and we need to teach our students as well. Thank you very much.
That's true. Excellent, excellent thing to remind all of us. The whole point about open book examinations also and designing the questions we agreed right in the beginning is to enhance learning. So the questions have to be formed that way without increasing the stress levels of students as well. And that's a challenge for all of us. So the next volunteer faculty member to speak today is Dr. Abdul Jalil Khan. For those writing in the chat box, please, all these presentations will be shared with you, so you don't have to worry about losing out on the links. And also, Anish has just sent a message that she'll be sending the poll, so please, if you could respond related to that. Dr. Jalil, please, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's a very nice presentation by all of you, and a lot of new strategies have been devised by many faculty members. My perspective was basically related to the quizzes, and I used basically Google Sheet, and I have learned a few important things by using it. Whenever we are going to give them the short questions, we may set some limits, word limit, and that word limit helps to make them more comprehensive in their answers, as well as they are going to complete that question within a specified time. And secondly, whenever we are going to observe the plagiarism thing, whether they are going to copy each other or they are going to use Google Sheet, then there are some ways, just like whenever I'm going to use, I'm going to design some questions, I'm not going to focus on definition as such, I'm going to focus on some analytical part. And secondly, whenever some definitional or related thing is there, I may find to Google that what is the possible answers which is mentioned there, and secondly, I can compare that with the answers given by the students. So another thing is that time may be fixed to complete MCQ parts. This is very much important, that sometimes we are believing that MCQs can be easily copied and short questions may not be, but potentially same in both cases. Students are quickly copying and taking the snap, and they are sharing in WhatsApp or in other sources. So imposing the time limit is very much important. It will help students to complete that particular question within the time limits. And secondly, they have a limited time to share with each other and discuss. So most of the things have already been discussed by many of you. There are some strategy I have actually observed regarding MCQs. First of all, we may offer, usually 4 answers are mentioned in the multiple choice questions, but more than 4 answers may be given to them, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending upon the type of questions. So they need to think more about the answers instead of just picking out of 4. And then checkbox grid questions are also there, which are quite helpful to understand if that kind of question is there, in which you can pick that particular grid which is more suitable. Then questions having some numerical solutions can be used. where students are giving the answers, and whatever solution they are going to make through manually, they are taking the snapshot and sharing through email or WhatsApp. So, and then choices may include some kind of real life examples, which are justifying that every student is attempting by herself or himself. So these are the suggestions given by me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jalil. And one example, like Dr. Shabnam mentioned as well, is that instead of just sticking to MCQs, if we can possibly mix up the open book assessments and not just limit it to MCQ, but supplement it with a Viva or with a, asking them a question about the individual course paper project that they did with us. So that would probably limit the chances of cheating, which is something that we can't avoid. It's not, none of the systems, open book or closed book, are foolproof for cheating. So mixing up the assessments and not just remaining with MCQs would help. Thank you for that. Dr. Adnan Arshad, sir, are you here?
Hello, good afternoon and assalamu alaikum. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we can. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I just wanted to say that I have been actually teaching majority of the courses to the postgraduate students. And the problem which I have faced during the open book examination, I have given them some scenarios in which they have to think about it. This is a simple scenario. They have to devise some lab related techniques and all these things. And I have also trained them. I think so. I have not trained them enoughly so that they can actually know how this open books examination goes. And I have actually counteract the cheating by taking their vivas individually, also by dividing them into different rooms during Zoom online vivas. And the problem I have faced that the all flaws lies with me. Actually, our curriculum is not in line with this open book examination. And the majority of the students who are coming to the postgraduate classes, they are actually coming through annual systems. And it is very difficult first for them to actually adapt themselves to the semester system. And secondly, when we impose them on the open books examination, then actually if I go back and look at the course outline which I have given them, it is not actually in line with their open books examination. Normally, what I have started doing is that I have actually started incorporating PBLs or problem-based or project-based lessons, in which they will be feeling themselves more easygoing and accustomed to this open book examination. Open book examination is a good thing, and you can devise different methods for that one, and you can actually stop cheating amongst the students or among the student groups. But what I feel is the need of the hour is that our curriculum should be redevised or revamped in a way that new technologies or new assessment methodologies like open book examination should be well incorporated to that one. And then it will be easy for those bachelor students who come to postgraduate students. They will be well versed with this one, and they help their fellow students who are coming outside from FC to read postgraduate here. They will be helping them out. It's a kind of a chain reaction. It's my opinion that our curriculum should be in line with the problem-based learning technologies so that open books examination will be easy for the students to go.
That's an excellent suggestion, Dr. Adnan. And to share my own personal experience, I've noticed that if we every 2 weeks you have a what you're calling problem-based learning or a comprehensive case study exam with assessment with students, like sharing a case study, making them read it together, asking them critical questions related to the study, and then grading them in class or online, whatever the mode of teaching, it starts developing their critical analysis. So I think what that conclusion that who would be responsible, I think all of us would be responsible, even if the University 100, even if the institute starts teaching and guiding students about open book examinations. But while we are delivering the course, in the first 2 weeks or even in the first month, having these case study and problem-based learning assessments really starts getting the children, the students unconsciously aware of open book assessments and getting them prepared. So those are excellent suggestions. Thank you so much. Mr. Romel is next, and then Miss Saba after that, please. So just 2 more people left, and then the floor should be open if, in case somebody else wants to say something. Those who would like to leave for classes, I think you've already left, but you're welcome to go. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry that we couldn't have a conclusion session, but it's important to hear everybody speak as well. Romel, please go ahead.
Yes. In line with whatever you have explained and discussed, I teach entrepreneurship, and what I have used in my final exam or assessment is that in addition to the business plan linked to the business ideas of the students, I incorporated research related content to that business plan to make the business plan more of essay type of writing, and it was a research aspect to the business plan was added to that assessment criteria. So I believe I have been using I have been understanding and using the same content which is shared in this workshop, where I try to incorporate open thinking, or what you call it, um, the understanding, the way the students can incorporate or include their own understanding of the concepts taught to them throughout the semester in a cumulative assessment component which is given to them in the end of the semester. So I think this was pretty successful, and they are right now very much in contact with me regarding their industry research, and I am helping them, guiding them on the lines exactly what the way you have expressed. So this is my experience with entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, Romel, for sharing that. I personally also give them a literature review template and ask them to, read 10 studies if that's part of their midterm examination. And then this is their work. It's impossible for them to cheat in this. So this is an excellent suggestion as well. Saba, please. Saba Iqbal from Maths.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. And like your good self mentioned in the introduction about the point to minimize cheating, full screen pop-up with some security. So I would like to discuss these 2 points. First one, while we are setting the online quizzes, first one is the full screen pop-up with some JavaScript security. So that option that is available in the settings for the Moodle quiz, more restrictions on extra attempts. You have to select the option more restrictions on extra attempts. And then there is one option which is browser security. So instead of setting it to none, you can select the option full screen pop-up with some Java security. So what actually is yes, it is okay. Moodle. Yes, I am talking about Moodle that I have actually practiced. And that option will basically, the quiz appears in a full screen pop-up window that covers all the other windows and has no navigation controls. And students are prevented as far as it is possible from using facilities like copy pasting.
Right. This is amazing. So, thank you, Saba, for sharing this.
Yes. And the second point that Dr. Shabnam mentioned, it's related to the sequential navigation. So this option is available in layout when you select more. So there is an option of free navigation. Okay, by default, it is set to free navigation. So you can actually set it to sequential navigation. What it actually does, students that basically helps us in the MCQs when students are attempting the MCQs, so they cannot turn back to their previous questions. Yeah. They can move to the next questions, but they cannot turn back to the previously attempted questions. So that option, these 2 options really help us in conducting the online quizzes.
Yeah, thank you. And I think
Thank you.
one recommendation or suggestion from all of us would be if we could get a PDF from IT or Moodle support to do that. And I think a session has been covered and another session will be covered related to this, but that handy PDF so that we can get a hang of the settings, and then it will become second nature to us. So thank you so much for that. The floor is now open for any other faculty member to share their best practices or to share any concerns or challenges, anything, feedback.
I'm not a faculty member, but I do want to share something. Building out more to what Dr. Saba said, there is an option of activating the firewall in Google Chrome settings. So even if you're not using Moodle or any other platform, you can just activate those settings. So students are not able to copy the statement and then paste it on Google search and see the similar results and फटाफट वहां से जो copy कर लेते हैं. So that option is also handy when your students can just copy paste in Google and see the answer.
Okay, and Anish, we could request, first of all, Anish, welcome to this new job. You've done a great job. God bless you. The thing is that if you could note this down and we could get a PDF or just, a small instructions ready with your suggestion and some suggestion. And if you can share that with everybody, it will be something great for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else, please? Right, then I think I'll say thank you. If nobody has anything else to say or contribute, thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for everybody's valuable contribution. And I think we're moving steadily forward towards, if not just open book examinations, a combination of different assessments to support all kinds of students, different circumstances, blended mode of teaching. And I think the objective for all of us is enhanced learning for the students and to support their learning and their knowledge building. And that was coming across in every speaker's talk. So thank you so much, everyone. And I think we probably have another session related to this later, but CLT will get back to you about this. Thank you. Thank you, Anish.
Thank you, Dr. Sara, and thank you to all the panelists and participants for your valuable inputs. Yes, we do have a session on Wednesday, this Wednesday, 2 days, after 2 days, on Moodle Gradebook by Sir Shakir. So hope to see you there. Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.